David here.
Guzikowski here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Just before we go on to the minutes, I'd like to welcome back Alderman Lorick. I did this at Common Council, but he was absent for about 2-3 months while he was serving our country on deployment for the Coast Guard. So welcome back. Glad to see you back in one piece. And we also welcome in a interim commissioner, our head engineer, Mike Simmons, as Matt Simmons is out with a health-related issue. So, Mikey, tell the panel about yourself a little bit.
Been with the city for 22 years, so.
All right, enough said. Approval of the minutes of October 8th, 2019, if you'd please take a look. And when everybody, if there are no omissions, errors, or corrections, we'll entertain a motion.
Guzikowski will make a motion to approve the minutes of October 8th, 2019.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, aye.
Simmons abstain.
Grillo, aye.
Clark abstains.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, moving on. Significant common council actions. Carrie?
Before I begin, Commissioner Oldani, I do not believe your microphone is on.
All right.
Council approved a resolution requesting that the United States Postal Service honor its previous agreements regarding the development and operation of a postal service processing and mail distribution facility at 2201 East College Avenue. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Gets us to our first new item of business, item 5A, and it's a plan review for building and site landscape plans for the Vision Property Group for an ambulatory surgery center at 10148 South 27th Street. Carrie.
The proposal is for an 11,281 square foot ambulatory surgery clinic. This parcel is part of the 27th Street Corridor Plan and located in the 27th Street General Overlay District and the OO Mixed Use Office Overlay Districts. On the screen is what currently exists on the property. There is one utility building that will remain on the northwest corner there. And on the screen is what is proposed. The lot, building, and parking setbacks meet all the dimensional requirements of the B4 district, also meets the setback requirements of the OO overlay district. Access, though there is what appears to be a very large curb cut right now, will be under the jurisdiction of WISDOT, so any approvals for the new driveway approach would have to come from WISDOT and also be copied to the city. The proposed hours of operation for the clinic are 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. The minimum parking requirements for medical offices are calculated at 5 patron stalls per doctor and 1 stall for every peak shift employee. Now, we've received information from the applicant's consultant that there would be a maximum of 3 surgeons on site at any one time. That would also allow for a maximum of 12 support staff on site at any one time. That would mean that we would be looking at a minimum of 30 parking stalls that would be required for the proposal. And the plans show a total of 58 parking stalls that are on the south side of the property and the east side of the building. While it is staff's preference that we avoid an excess of parking, the stalls that are provided are shown on the plans would also allow for any future expansion of the facility should that be needed. So there's no real risk to putting in the extra stalls. It's just a matter of, yes, there are more than what are required. Turning now to the building elevations, we'll go piece by piece here since these are a little bit small. Actually, I am going to start with the south elevation, which is at the top of the screen here. The primary exterior building materials include brick in 3 different patterns and stone veneer on the west, south, and east elevations. There are ephes as accent materials proposed on the west and south elevations. The east, which also has a bit of ephes, is not within the visible perimeter, so it's not really subject to that 25% rule, although it does meet that. However, there is a portion of the building, and that's actually on the north elevation, and that is proposed to be more than 50% of ephes, and plan commissioners will recall that the code does limit the amount of ephes on a building within the visible perimeter to 25% as an accent material. And again, this would exceed 50. There are also insulated and spandrel glass panels that are proposed on all elevations, but it is difficult from the plans that were submitted to distinguish between what is proposed as spandrel versus regular glass, so we would like some clarification on that. There are also metal and stone canopies provided on the building. The metal and stone are on the entry facade, which is on the west, kind of southwest portion of the building. And then there's one metal canopy that is over the east portion of the building, which kind of has 3 doors on that side. So you can see the metal canopy is just a singular piece over those doors. There are rooftop mechanical units that are shown in the plans. They're in the center and on the western portion of the roof, and they are proposed to be screened. You will recall that screening of all mechanical units, transformers, utility boxes, whether they be ground, rooftop, or building attached, are required to be screened. As I mentioned, the ephes is not allowed as a primary exterior material on the building exceeding 25%. Per code, and we do have an allowance, however, that the Plan Commission can approve of a different type of material or excess of 25% with a 3/4 majority approval if the plans incorporate supplemental design elements or improvements incorporated into the plans or into the project overall, which compensate for the modification of that standard. And because this is in the overlay district, those modification requests, the supplemental design elements actually have to go above and beyond that which is minimum required by code. There were modification requests included in your Plan Commission packets that didn't quite match up with what was in the report because they came at a different time. However, there were other parts of the overlay district that were outlined in the staff report for Plan Commission consideration when looking at those modification requests. So whichever portion applies to the specific project and where they are looking for some relief from the specific requirements of code, those are outlined for you. You can make a determination whether or not the proposal as presented goes above and beyond, or if you are going to require some additional design elements to be included into the plans to make up for that. This is, again, a kind of an overview of the site itself. You can see outlined in red here, and I'm going to zoom in here just a minute. That is the location of the mechanical units, and then you will notice off to the east side of the building, that is a singular generator and trash enclosure. It is proposed to be made out of brick to match the building, and then metal gates would be on the south side interior to the parking lot for access. Just a general rendering of what the building would look like. You're looking at kind of the west-southwest. That's the entrance portion of the building, and also the south portion of the building. Actually, I think that might be the north. What's on the screen right now is the proposed landscape plan, and as mentioned in the staff report, there are a couple of places where there would need to be some enhancements. One of the recommendations is that there would be incorporated landscape plantings around the trash and generator enclosure to kind of soften that view to the north. Additionally, putting some landscape treatments along the north property line to kind of separate that from the property to the north, as the buildings are quite close to that property line. The northern property buildings are close to this property line. It enhances the site, gives it a little more of a buffer there. There's also requirements for there to be some landscape treatments around the proposed monument sign, which is shown in the location highlighted in red at the southwest corner of the property. These items have been discussed with the applicant's consultants, and staff will continue to work with the applicant's consultants to ensure that those requirements per code are met. And if there are any other enhancements that are going to be required by the Plan Commission, possibly as part of those modification requests, staff will continue to work with the applicant's consultants on those as well. With that in mind, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Robert McCarville of Vision Properties Group, LLC, for the property at 10148 South 27th Street, subject to conditions 1 through 7, and I will now turn it over to the applicant's consultant for a brief presentation.
Hi, I'm Kurt Penny with Eckert Wardell. I'm the architect engineer on the project. We also have Mark Madsen. He's a civil engineer on the project. We're representing the Vision Property Group here this evening. Just a little bit more about the project. This will be a 3 OR operating room facility with the plans to potentially add on a 4th OR in the future, as was mentioned with the additional parking. The reason for the additional parking spots is just the overlap in surgical times. So it's a staggered schedule for the doctors to kind of move in and out of the ORs and with staffing. So you have a lot of traffic crossing, so you need the additional parking spots kind of above the minimum. Just to answer a few of the questions that we understand, we have no problems with the additional landscaping that's recommended. Be happy to get that involved. There's also a mention of Spandrel Glass, so just wanted to clarify that. So on what would be the northeast side, we would have some Spandrel Glass going from the waiting room. I guess let me take a step back. In our waiting room, we have a 2-story space. So that tries to attempt to meet some of the requirements for, a taller structure in that zoning district. Also, it's a nice space to let some natural light in because of the drop-off canopy. So within that two-story space, there's glass that brings in light from the north and the east. And also in that view is some view of the air handling unit. So that was an area that we applied a little bit of Spandrel Glass because of the design. We also have some Spandrel Glass just on the band where the canopy attaches to the front of the building. Along that portion of the building, there's a small band of Spandrel Glass. We attempted with our design to provide a mix of kind of natural materials and natural tones to the building, so it blends into the site. This is, as you know, a very long and linear site, so we are attempting to kind of highlight the south elevation of the building because that's where the parking is, that's where the entry of the building is, that's where the most visibility is going to be on 27th Street. From the north, it's going to be hard to get a view because of that utility building, also the old hotel that's currently there and the tree line that's currently there. On that north property line, there is the intention to keep a row of some of that tree line there. So again, we would be work with the city to get some additional landscaping along there. We do have some utilities running along that north property line, so we would obviously want to pick the right plantings not to affect the utilities running there. As far as the EFS goes, that was an attempt to highlight a few portions of the building, also on the east side and the north side. So on the east side, obviously, that's facing the rear of the property. But on the north side, we felt that area was going to be heavily screened, kind of with the existing tree line. working with the staff to potentially add some more landscaping there. That it was just an effort to kind of mix the design palette and also provide a little bit of cost savings to the building based on it being a kind of a medical practice here. I guess at this point, Mark and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Carrie, anything else before I open up the commission? Okay, commissioners, let's start us off. Mike?
Excuse me. Question on the existing building that's at the 27th Street side, north, I guess the northwest corner of the property. What is that building and what purpose does it serve?
It's an electrical utility, so I think it's probably We Electric or We Energy. You think?
You'll have to be on the microphone, sir.
Sorry.
And then name and address, please.
My name is Mark Matson with Nielsen Matson and Barber. Business address is 1458 Horizon Boulevard in Mount Pleasant. It's a permanent easement for that structure. That's one of the first things when they were doing some of their site analysis of this that we noticed right away on the title report that there was an easement there, and it doesn't take long. You just drive out there, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. So yeah, we had to work around that from the beginning.
Looks like you got some plantings planned for that to screen it to some.
Yeah, it's not in the best of shape, so we're planning to do some screening of that to limit the view of it.
Is that it for now, Mike?
Yes.
Elsie?
Can you provide more information on the entrance and exits for this property?
Yeah, so being an ambulatory surgery center, we're required to have a main entrance and a discharge. So the discharge comes from the pre and post-op area, so that patients don't go back through the waiting room. It's a code requirement. So our canopy encompasses that total area. So it'll be connected to the main entrance, which will have sliding doors, and then also to the discharge, which will have a single 4-foot door. Within that canopy, up against the building, there'll be a slot where we can get some natural light into. So the canopy just doesn't go up to the building and kind of shade the entire thing. But our intention is, the canopy is a code requirement for Medicare reimbursement, also state health codes. But we wanted to make it a feature because it's a requirement. So we feel that that canopy really enhances the architecture of the building.
And can you also provide information on the entrance and exits for the parking lot?
Yep. So the main entrance will be, I don't know if we can zoom in on that a little bit. So where the turnaround is there, that'll be, you can see that dashed line, which is the canopy. That's the main entrance. So most of the parking, we know in this overlay district that we want to get parking from the front of the building and push it to the back and the side. So this was our attempt to move the parking to the south side of the site. So most of the patients will be kind of along that south lot line. And then the doctors and staff will park behind the building. So what usually happens, this is going to be an ophthalmology only facility. So when you obviously have eye surgery, you're not walking out and driving yourself typically. So usually a loved one or two are with the patient. So typically what happens is that loved one goes out and gets the car, pulls up to the canopy, and picks up the patient there. So that's kind of the flow of the site.
So is there just one entrance and exit? Or
So-
the same entrance and exit on 27th Street, just one?
Yeah, there's only one access point to the site. The The site is what, like 580 feet long by I think 181 wide. So it's a very long and linear site. Therefore, the architecture and the design of the building became really long to kind of meet all the requirements of the overlay district, push the parking to the side from the front, and then try to enhance kind of that two-story effect as much as we could on the 27th Street side. We do have a patients will enter from the front, but staff will enter from the back.
And how many individuals will be at the property at one time?
So the max will be 15 employees, but you could have up to 12 people in the pre and post-op, kind of waiting and discharging from surgery. There could be another 3 people in surgery. And then usually you have at least 1 or 2 people that are with the patient. So you can see very quickly why we need the 58 parking spots.
Thank you.
Fred?
Yeah, can you give a little more explanation of the use of the spandrel glass that you use?
Yeah, so again, on the northeast side, there's the rooftop units, and we're screening those with metal and partially ephes. But the view from the waiting room is not that great to that area, so we wanted to provide spandrel glass in a few areas to prevent that view of the rooftops. Also, where the canopy intersects the building at the entrances, we have some spandrel glass there, so there's a different aesthetic from the interior versus the exterior. So you're not seeing that structure.
Okay, thank you.
But the spandrel will be all the same tint and glazing, so you really won't know that it's spandrel. So.
Is there a medical group attached to the project yet?
Yes, there's a group of at least 10 doctors right now. There may be a few more that come aboard. So it's a partnership of doctors that are going to own the property and the real estate, and then there'll actually be several other doctors that are doing surgery out of here, but not part of the property group. So this was a central location that they chose. There's doctors and their practices to the south and to the west and the north that are forming this surgery center. So it's a nice central spot. You know, they felt it was a developing kind of medical area with the hospital being there, so that's why they chose this spot.
The materials and design wasn't made to match across the street.
No, different organization. Yep.
Don, anything? Chris?
No, this is in my district, and I like what I'm seeing so far, so it'd be nice to see.
Don? Okay, Christina? Nothing? Okay. Guess that kind of leaves it to me. I guess I'd like to see if our acting chief has any fire issues, requirements, particularly getting to the north side of that building. I know you guys will probably just claw your way back there if needed, but hydrant locations, anything like that concern you?
Mike Kresick, Fire Department. You know, it's an unusual lot, relatively thin in nature. The access is what the access is, and it's a smaller building, so what they've designed around the structure is adequate for our needs. I've already started to discuss with the engineer hydrant placement and some turnarounds that might come into play, so we don't have any outstanding concerns at this time.
Obviously fully sprinkled.
Yes.
All right. I guess my only one, and I'll just have Carrie repeat this, concerning the EFS, we require that no more than 25%, if I'm understanding this, can be EFS, but overall at least 75% of the building has to be stone, glass, or brick, correct? And we would meet that with this?
Except when you talk about the overlay district. The overlay district doesn't allow EFS at all. So the modification request would be for the use of EFS on the building as an accent material for the overlay district. But then the excess of 25% on the north elevation would also be a modification request.
Okay. So it's the overlay district that's kind of thrown.
The overlay district is much more stringent in its standards for building materials, for site layout, for circulation, for parking, those kinds of things. It's also one of the requirements that the building be 2 stories or appear to be 2 stories, which is one of the reasons why we have some of the modification requests that came about. Staff worked very closely with the consultants on making sure that the building met the spirit of the code, and want to acknowledge and thank them for the design elements that appear to be 2 stories in height.
It's great, and that's a good reminder. We kind of dealt with this on 27th and Ross, and at one point in time with the car dealership on the 2-story. I myself, I'm really not too bent out of shape about the EFS on the north side, as long as the landscaping is beefed up. I along with Chris, it's kind of a challenging lot. I think it's a good fit there, directly across from our neighbors to the west with the hospital there, and there's a lot of medical things going on there. I think it's good placement. So, I guess the only other question is, you have the container for the generator, the container, the block wall,
Screen, yeah.
the screen. Did I hear it right? Is the trash going to be similar?
So it's one enclosure, but it's separated by a wall in between. So the generator is closest to the building, and the trash portion is actually further east. But it's one enclosure that is brick to match the building.
I think that kind of really does it for me. Like I say, as long as you can work with our staff on the enhancements on the north side, I myself, I could live with that for what we're getting in this one.
So then at that point, staff would have to ask whether or not, one, the plan for the building is something that the Plan Commission is satisfied with, and whether or not there are any other requirements that are going to be placed on the property or the building itself to make up for those modification requests. If it's just landscaping, then staff would need to be directed on the landscaping portion. If there's something else that the Plan Commission is going to be directing for making up for that modification request, then we would need to have that stated.
Seeing none,
Sure what you just said.
basically, if we were going to suggest modifications to the building, I think in layman's terms, is that kind of it, Carrie?
So if you go to your staff report and you turn to the letter dated October 17th, there's a letter that states what the modification requests are being requested. Little bit redundant there, sorry. Basically stating that they are asking for some relief from the code requirements on the EFS. And there's some justification in there for why they're using the EFS, some of which you heard verbally. What I am asking the Plan Commission to determine is whether the plans as proposed are something you're satisfied with, including the use of EFS on the building, and whether the modification requests can be made up for by the use of enhanced landscaping on the site. If there are other requirements that the Plan Commission is going to be submitting for enhancements to the site or enhancements to the building to make up for the use of EFS or any other modification requests for the property, staff would need to know what those are.
Oh, everybody just kind of take a second and kind of read that over, and if you have any questions, we'll get clarification.
On pages 4 and 5 of the staff report are the overlay district design standards that are applicable to the site and building. There are some comments on here that explain what pertains to the building and what sections are modifications from the code. So if the Plan Commission, by 3/4 majority, is going to approve of the plans as presented, there are going to be requirements for those portions that would be a modification. So that would mean you would have to determine whether or not there are supplemental design standards. And what that means are you going to require less use of EFS in favor of more brick, for instance? Are you going to be requiring more landscaping on the site, for instance? Are you going to be requiring a certain kind of design standard for the monument sign? Something like that would be a supplemental design element that goes above and beyond what is required normally in code to make up for that modification request. If the Plan Commission is only going to be requiring landscaping to do that, that's what staff needs direction on.
Gary, that 25%, is that for EFS material only?
In this case, it would be for the EFS only, yes. The spandrel glass is not mentioned in the underlying code requirements, and the only real mention of any kind of glass within the overlay district that is not just what your normal tinted glazing is, refers to dark or mirrored glass. So spandrel isn't really something that is necessarily touched on in either portion of the code, so that's not really anything that we need to worry about necessarily. We just need to know where it is.
Gary, if we were satisfied with the plans here and we just wanted to ask for additional supplementing the landscape, the supplemental landscape, could we just add that into one of the codes if we were going to accept the plans as they were given tonight?
If you take a look at condition number 6, if that needs enhanced language, I can certainly do something with that. If the Plan Commission wants the landscaping plan to come back for Plan Commission review and approval at a later date, we can do that as well. Or if the Plan Commission just wants to direct staff to work with the consultant for additional landscaping on the north, around the sign, and if there are any other areas specific on the property that the Plan Commission would like to see enhanced, that would be something that we would be looking for. So on the screen right now is the proposed landscape plan for your reference. If there are any other areas that you see landscaping would be needed or beefed up, as the mayor had said, that would be something that we would look for.
And I would also, just to move forward, I would also be in favor of having the staff work directly with them.
And again, the north side, just a little barren from landscape there, whether it's up to the building and decorative shrubs or something to even block the view. And then of course, we talked about the enclosure around the trash and generator to enhance that.
Yeah, and staff does recognize that there would be some restrictions with regard to utility easements. So enhanced landscaping up against the building on the north side is probably going to be easiest. There would be low landscaping, no trees or tall shrubs that would be allowed in the utility easement. So we can definitely have some back and forth conversation on landscaping in that area. Again, around the monument sign, that is a requirement. But if there are any other spots on the site specifically that the Plan Commission wants to see.
Again, it's my belief that wall could be broken up with landscaping between what windows they do show on the north side. As Carrie said, it's a great point. There is a utility easement there, so they will have to stay out of that. So most of this will stay tight to that wall.
The reason that I keep asking about the landscaping is because landscape plans are really the jurisdiction of the Plan Commission, and those approvals really should be coming from the Plan Commission.
Okay.
So
So I got a question. So could we approve today the use of the EFS with a future approval of landscaping as worked with the planning, with staff and brought back?
If the Plan Commission would prefer to see the landscape plan brought back, that is an option.
As a condition of approving the EFS use tonight?
You could, yes.
Yeah. That's what I.
Okay.
Did I hear also, though, that it doesn't necessarily have to come back to the Plan Commission, that the
It
direction
doesn't-
could be to staff, just work out
If the direction
what
is
is
specific.
reasonable?
Yes, if the direction is specific enough, we can do that. If the Plan Commission would rather just the landscape plan as a whole, the revised come back, we can do that as well. There are two options.
I do have a question for the applicant in regards to EFS. So can you provide a little more information on why the percentage is so high, why it's not 25%?
Well, overall, around the entire building, it's 24%, I actually believe. But just on that side particularly, because of the nature of where it's at on the site, you're just not gonna see a lot of it from any view. So that's why we chose to kind of mix it in that area.
I guess I'm unclear. So why EFS and not stone or brick?
So EFIS was another element that we introduced into the material palette to break up the facade, and partially it's because of cost. Just because EFIS is less costly, but we're intending to kind of do some bands and reveals. It's not going to be just a flat facade with Barrett EFIS applied to it.
So which part of the building on that side?
Yeah, if you see the view right now, the gray part on the far kind of east side, that's EFIS. The other two portions that are primarily have views from the street are the brick, the red.
And the reason I'm asking this, because I know in our packet, it stated that you can't find brick that's a lighter color. So I guess I'm unclear of the reasoning that was identified in our packet.
So we're using the EFIS here and then partially on the screen facing the south side of the RTUs. So the reason why it's used on the screen is it's a tall structural element, and if you start putting brick on that element, it becomes very heavy, and you have to have a robust structural system to kind of back the brick, where EFIS is very light. So that's where we use that, and this was an attempt to blend that in with the entire building. And just to be clear, I mean, it was a cost issue too.
So what's the alternative plan to decrease the EFIS if this is not agreed upon? Do you have another plan?
Our backup plan would be to go to the doctors and recommend putting brick around there, which would be an additional cost.
It'd be a cost, and then you'd have solid brick wall too. The color combinations do tend to break it up. So
Yeah,
I think that is a positive.
And what I'm hearing too is, with the landscape that we're gonna propose and work with staff there with, is that'll also kind of break up that facade also. So we're very in tune with that, and we have no problem kind of adding some extra elements there. And I, for one, are gonna suggest that we add a few more shrubs by that utility building also to kind of screen that. So.
Appreciate that. But the color plays well. I mean, the different colors. It's well broken up. So.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. How do we feel, commissioners? Ready for a motion?
To add something in saying,
Well, the only decision you have is, do you want staff to handle the landscaping and we have complete trust in them? Or do you want to see what staff worked out with them? Is that correct?
If you're going, okay. Condition number 6 would presume that the Plan Commission is going to direct staff to work with the applicant. If the Plan Commission wants to see the landscape plan come back, we would have to change condition 6, probably to say that that revised plan would come back to the Plan Commission.
I'd say leave 6 as is.
Do it in the motion. See where it goes.
Donnie moves that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Robert McCarville Vision Properties Group LLC for the properties at 10148 South 27th Street with the following conditions: that all relevant code requirements remain in effect, that copies of all access approvals shall be provided to the city prior to the submission of building permit applications, that the exterior brick and stone veneer meet the minimum 4-inch thick requirements per code, that the color of the spandrel windows shall not be a dark or mirrored glass per overlay district standards and shall be specified on the final plans, that the plans are revised to include locations for all mechanicals, transformers, and utilities, that all mechanical equipment, transformers, and utility boxes, ground building and rooftop, are screened from view, that the landscape plan is revised to incorporate plantings on the north portion of the property around the proposed monument sign location and as necessary for compliance with the code requirements. Plants used to screen parking areas from rights of way must be installed and maintained at a minimum height of 3 feet. That all revised plans, site, building, landscape, etc., are submitted in digital format for review by the Department of Community Development prior to submission of the building permit applications.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Simmons, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. Congratulations. Next, we have item 5B, and that is a consideration of a temporary use permit for Barrett Low Visionary Development for a temporary parking lot located at 7951 South 6th Street. Gary?
So the proposal is for temporary parking to serve the existing construction project for the Parterre Apartments, which is just south of the existing Emerald Row apartment building. And the location that is highlighted in red is actually immediately to the west-northwest of the existing apartment complex. So this would be kind of in between the apartment and the existing freighter facility. The request is to alleviate the parking constraints that have arisen as part of the construction project. It's something that is required as the project is progressing. Some of the parking that is existing will be removed in order to be reconfigured during the project. And that would displace current resident parking, so they would be directed to park at this proposed temporary lot, which again, adjacent to the existing building. The proposal includes 40 stalls, and that would be constructed with the minimum of 3 inches of asphalt over 8 inches of compacted stone base, and that would be in place for the duration of the construction project for Phase 2 Parterre. The temporary lot would then be removed and the site restored to pre-construction conditions once that project has been finalized, and there are some conditions of approval that go along with that. Staff did raise several concerns with the temporary project. However, we would like to acknowledge the conversations that have occurred with the consultants in order to address these concerns, and we want to thank them very much for working through those with us. The conditions as proposed directly relate to those concerns and the solutions that were discussed with the consultants. So if the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the temporary use permit for the temporary parking lot at 7951 South 6th Street, subject to conditions 1 through 7. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Applicant, you guys want to say anything, or you just want us to go at it? Welcome. Name and address, please.
Bradley Hoffman with Rinka, architect for the project. Our business address is 756 North Milwaukee Street, Suite 250, Milwaukee. The purpose of the parking lot is kind of twofold. It's to help alleviate the parking concerns. During construction, the Phase 2 project, as reviewed, is up against the existing parking lot to the south of the Phase 1 project. And the parking stalls against there, the idea with the parking lot is we're going to need access for safety and site construction during the duration of that project. It won't necessarily be every day, but we want to make sure that we're providing that buffer, that there is no damage to vehicles, provide safety from all users and occupants that are in that area. That's really the purpose of the parking lot. The location we have it is there's a curb cut existing already that was put in place during the construction of the curbs and the street that was placed in there. So we're using that to tie in, and that was one of the primary drivers for the location of that.
Great. Questions from the commission?
Yeah, I have a question. The timeline to put this temporary parking lot in, when would you start that?
We would like to try to get in as soon as possible after the Plan Commission. We're running up against deadlines with asphalt plants closing this year.
So, soon as possible is what you're saying.
Yes. So the idea, if we did have this approval today, we would work with Carrie and the departments to get the rest of the information that are needed, so we could proceed within the next probably week.
Kelsey, anything?
And how long will these parking spaces be available?
Per the condition that was set forward at the beginning, it would be removed, have to be removed within 6 weeks of the final occupancy of the parterre project.
That's scheduled for?
I believe we have a July 2021 is the current schedule for the project to be complete.
And I have another question for Carrie, just to understand the difference. I know we had another applicant to come and ask for the same scenario. How is this the same? Is this different?
This is different. One of the main differences is this is on an adjacent property that is owned by the applicant, and the parking stalls are actually going to be paved. They are not proposing to use gravel or park on the grass. This is in direct relation to a construction project. This doesn't have anything to do with inventory or something on a different parcel, or, it's all related to a construction project for the apartments that will be kind of phased together. So this was kind of something that had been envisioned over the years would be a future development site. So we were actually working with the applicant's consultants on what would be the future vision for this particular parcel as well, and how we can possibly coordinate with that. But for this particular request, it's a paved parking lot that would be temporary and directly related to an existing construction project for a second phase of an existing apartment building.
Thank you.
Okay. Don?
No questions.
Chris? Greg?
Curious, is this going to be a private lot, or is
Yes.
this going to be open for public?
It'll be a private lot for the apartment building itself,
Right.
similar to the lot on the south side of the current project.
During construction, do you know, is the street parking in front of the property going to be lost during construction?
Paul Hackbarth with Green Fire Management, or the construction manager for the apartments. As far as the parking stalls go in front of the site, the three north stalls would be removed for public use while we're creating the entrance to the main building. There's curb cuts and a new approach that gets built that really, other than that should be the only impact of the parking across from the library.
Don? Mike?
One thing that I think that we should acknowledge, is, and this is a benefit to all, is that once this temporary parking lot, this gets constructed, that the cars that are displaced during the construction of parterre are not using the street parking, because we know that that is very tight at times. And so there's that benefit to this. The only other comment is I think probably staff would work with them to get pedestrian access off the parking lot. There's like a 5-foot wide stretch. It looks like it would be grass that would need to, just get it to that concrete sidewalk, that existing walk along the north side of the parking lot, maybe 1 or 2 locations. Very minor.
That Mike?
Yes.
Okay, Christina? Nothing? I mean, I'm in favor of it. It's necessary. We all know that at times there can be parking challenges. This is actually a very expensive alternative for construction. Usually they just lay down some dirt or some gravel and they call it good. So this is actually really a benefit to those men and women that are going to work on the building there. I have no issues at all with it, so I'm good. All right. Any further questions? Seeing none, motion.
Seifert moves that the Plan Commission approves a temporary use permit for the temporary parking lot at 7951 South 6th Street with the following conditions. 1, all applicable building and fire codes are in effect. 2, a minimum 5-foot setback shall be maintained from the right-of-way and all property lines. 3, there shall be a maximum of 40 parking stalls provided per the approved site plan. 4, all vehicles shall be parked on 3 inches of asphalt over 8 inches of compact stone base per engineering department requirements. 5, there shall be no stockpiling of material on this site. 6, all vehicles and temporary parking materials shall be removed, the site restored to its pre-condition condition and vegetation re-established within 6 weeks following the issuance of an occupant permit for the parterre apartment construction project. 7, prior to construction of the temporary parking lot, the applicant shall submit to the city a cash escrow to assure removal, restoration of the lot and affected area in a time frame outlined in the temporary use permit. The cash escrow escrow amount shall be 1.2 times the cost of the calculation cost of the restoration work.
Chandler.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Hannah, aye.
Simmons, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Avich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Wadani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, before we adjourn, as usual, I'd like to thank our staff, Tim, the IT guy, and Carrie, thank you for navigating us through the complexities of what we had to deal with tonight. Appreciate that. This weekend, we are having a Badger tailgate in the square. It's our first ever attempt at that. So come on out if it's anything like last weekend for the wrap-up of the last farmer's market and the Fall Fest. It's going to be crowded, so that parking lot probably couldn't go in quick enough. But anyways, it was a lot of fun. I want to thank everybody that came out and partook, in particular the staff. And Dawn, congratulations on a very successful farmer's market season 2.
Thank you.
So with that, I guess we can adjourn unless I missed something. You got a comprehensive plan meeting or anything you want to announce?
The Plan Commission will get a chance to review the comprehensive plan at a public hearing on December 10th. The comprehensive plan is available on the website. It's actually on the project website, which can be accessed through the city's website. We're going to get a better link on there somewhere. But comments, this is an open comment period for everybody. And then we are currently in progress for the zoning code update. So if there are any questions, concerns, things that you would like to see that we don't already have in the zoning code, or things that you would like to have addressed, please do submit those comments. We are working very closely with our consultants to make sure that we get the best possible zoning code product.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. And just one more note, December 10th will be our last planning meeting for the year, correct? So again, please put a little time aside at the end so we can get together and share some more stories of the Planning Commission for the year. With that, adjournment, please.
Perillo moves to adjourn at 6:56.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
And aye.
Simmons, aye.
Perillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everybody.